G'day YouTube, we're back in the purpose-built Moto garage for day one of our next build series. Since we finished up the Nemesis Adventure project and the Sportster Scrambler, we've had Dylan join the shop, so he's going to be helping us out with this series as well. The bike that we're doing is a Husqvarna Vitpilen 401 2018 model. I picked this thing up from a mate with only 300 Ks on it, and I've since put about 700 Ks on it getting to know the bike. That's given me a bit of an insight onto the improvements that I want to make on this thing. Right now it's a really sporty riding style, and the 400cc single cylinder doesn't really speak to me as a sports bike. So we're going to be doing some performance mods on the way it handles, upgrading a few bits and pieces to get a bit more juice out of it, and then also changing the way it looks a little bit as well. So we're about to rip in on day one and strip this whole thing down, and as we go we'll start to develop a bit of a plan on what we're going to do with it. Because this thing won't be receiving a complete rewire, we're going to be sort of patching in the new lights that we do and all that sort of stuff. As we're removing it, like I've just taken off the swing arm mounted tail tidy and fender, so that has your number plate lights and rear indicators on it, marking everything as we go, so when we come to do it I can reuse the old plugs and splice the new lighting in once we build the tail tidy.
So we've just pulled the exhaust off here. It's going to be a huge weight saving. There's like 5 kilos there, probably 1 or 2 kilos there, and there'd be maybe 7 or 6 kilos here.
The good thing about this little Husky is it's really well built. The horrible thing about this Husky is that it's really well built. But trying to pull it apart is a nightmare. There's little covers over all the wiring to get to plugs and all sorts of wild stuff. So pulling down this front end, you got a bunch of covers up under the tank where all the plugs are sort of held out of the weather. So once we get this off, I think one of the major jobs and the sort of catalyst that we did this whole thing is to put a set of motocross bars on it. I don't really like the clip-on setup with the way that the seat is and stuff like that, and I feel like it'd just be a little bit nicer to ride with a set of higher bars. So instead of spending maybe 800 bucks on a genuine triple clamp or having one machined, we're going to modify this one and weld a set of Renthol risers on it, so we can clip a set of Renthol fat bars on the top. Because the triple clamp's set up for clip-on bars only and they've been casted to accommodate that, we've got to trim off the casting pieces and make sure that we can sort of fit this on within the bar clamp area. So I'm going to just mock up these, I'll put the clamps on the bars and then we'll go take some measurement. Another thing we also have to do is make sure that our cables and brake hoses, clutch lines have enough room that we can lift the bars up here. Because these bikes come in both the Vitpilen and Svartpilen, and the Svartpilen has a set of handlebars mounted on top, there should be enough room to move this. I think definitely on the brake line we may have to make our own clutch cable, but I'm quietly confident that we'll be able to make it work without it. So we're going to trim this off, rip that off, and then we'll weld the clamps onto the top there.
Just fitting up the new Renthol fat bars. Just getting position on the original triple clamp here. Just figuring out where it's going to go, where it's going to fit, and we're going to weld them on.
So teardown's pretty well complete. I think we got it done in about 2 hours. Fairly quick. A lot of this stuff, we're not exactly sure if we're going to change it yet. Things like the front fender we might keep because they're a pretty nice little unit to start with. Dylan at the moment's fabricating the new handlebar mounts, so that'll all be changed. We've rerouted the cables. The headlight's staying. I feel like the LED headlight on these things is a real selling point on the Vitpilen. So that's going to stay. We'll fit up a set of purpose-built Moto LED indicators to bring it all in a little bit tighter. Coming down the side of the bike, the new exhaust that we'll make, I'm on the hunt for like an FMF or a DP power bomb potentially to put on this, something more suitable for a 450 dirt bike. So we'll see how that goes, but whether we find one of those and use it or not, we'll be building a new stainless steel exhaust, doing away with the cat and the muffler and bringing out high on the right hand side of the bike, a little bit more sort of off-road style there, and we'll be making our own muffler, so we'll weld up a stainless steel can and do our own core and stuff, so we'll run you through that in a later episode. Potentially, we're going to be removing these foot pegs and shortening it. At the moment, they're in a bit of a rear set position, so we may cut maybe 30 or 40 mil out of here to shove your feet forward a little bit more. It'll require redoing the linkages and stuff, but it's not that much of a modification, so that's going to happen. On the rear, the number plate and stuff used to wrap around the tyre, so we're doing away with that, and we'll be building a tail tidy up underneath the brake light here, just to keep it all a little bit tidier. And you got these nice spoked wheels and the swing arm and stuff, so it'll allow you to see that a bit more. When it comes to the seat, I think we'll probably leave that for a little while before we make a call on it, just so we can get a bit more of an idea. Once we've got the bars and the other few little bits and mods done, the exhaust is on, then we can make a call on that, which way we want to go. Obviously this thing's not going to be too much of a gnarly build, although I say that now, things do tend to get out of hand. But at the moment, that's about all the plan we need. It gives us enough to move forward with, and then as we progress, you know, we might think of a few different bits and pieces here. But I guess the main goal of this thing is just to really give these Vitpilens a dress up. We don't want to go too crazy on it, but with the bike being epic as it is the whole reason that I bought it, I just feel like I want to put my stamp on it a little bit more. So we'll work through these things, and as we go, if we want to change things, and you know, from where we are right now, it might take a completely different direction, but that'll give us definitely enough to start with. So I'm just linking up these new front indicators, and I noticed that the stock ones had this small resistive circuit board in line with the loom. So I've just linked it up and tested it. Some bikes, they'll run through an ECU, and if you can't match the stock resistance, they'll flash weird and all sorts of stuff. These circuits do have a mechanical flasher on them, like most older model bikes. So I just wanted to double check. So I linked this up, mocked it up with the indicators, and it both works after the circuit and before. So I'm going to do away with it and just run the standard purpose-built motor indicator. Workday number 2 on our Husky Vitpilen 401 project. We're running these episodes over a couple of work days just so we can sort of jam a bunch of mods in, you know, get a bit of bang for your buck out of the episode. So the bars and risers are now welded up, painted. It looks pretty well factory apart from the Renthal logo sitting on top. We've got the fat bars fitted. I ended up having to extend the wiring. The cabling was fine, but the wiring we had to muck around with. So we're going to finish up the front end now, clip all the stock headlight, the speedo and all that sort of stuff, put the covers back on, and then we'll make the mirrors on the front. I'll get Dylan to do that. I'm going to move on to the back and start to fabricate the custom tail light, fit the new indicators on, and then we'll sort out a tail tidy as well. So on the tail end here, I've decided we're going to do a custom brake light. So I'm going to trim this out and start to develop a bit of an idea on how we're going to do that to sort of fit in with the new tail tidy we're making, and sort of really tighten up this tail section. I'm going to be mounting a couple of our LED hollow tip lights onto the fairing here, so they'll be sort of shortened down so they fit in nice and tight here. these new lights that we've just put out, I mean, we've had these for a long time, but I've just had them E13 approved, so they're completely legal for like ADR use in Australia and all throughout Europe and Asia as well. So these going on sort of the plastics here will help to tie in. We won't have any spacing or anything like that, or things sticking out. It'll just help to keep this like nice flow of that husky tail as well. Just finished modifying these little LED lights here. Start to fit them up onto the fairing. I think like the body shape of these bikes is sort of instrumental in why I like them. So the work that we're doing is sort of trying to remove a bit of the noise and bring that nice shape out a little more. So sort of by tucking everything in, it'll allow you to sort of see more of that body line. The seat is something that I sort of haven't really put any strenuous thought towards yet. We're gonna have to do something to make it nice as well, although I don't want it to finish flat out the back. I want to sort of maybe make a little bit of shape to it. And sort of as we go along, you know, putting the brake light in and all that sort of stuff will help us to make that decision a little bit more. Another thing that, you know, we've done that drastically changed it is rip that tail tidy off of the back. So sort of clearing all this up here makes the bike look so much lighter. We're waiting on a couple of parts for the exhaust too, so I'm trying to hunt down like a secondhand dirt bike mega bomb exhaust that we can modify and cut to put on the 400. If I can find one, we'll use it. If not, we'll just make ourselves like a nice custom stainless header and a stainless muffler as well.
So I'm just fitting these mirrors up to the Vitpilen. They're pretty universal with the way we're doing it. We've fitted a lot up to a lot of the bikes we've done. And if you go on our website, there's a blog that tells you how to do it all.
Now we've finished the front end, we're going to go and move these pegs forward. The way that the Vitpilens are set up, they're quite cramped. I mean, awesome for someone that's my size, but the whole reason I got this bike was because a friend of mine bought it and it was a little too small for him. Part of that was changing the clip-on bars. So now that we've got the motocross bars, it gives you a lot more room on the top, but you sort of have to match that with your foot position, and having high bars but rear set pegs is, I really hate that riding style. So a lot of guys would sort of like leave it because they don't mind it, but for me, when you sort of like putting these things together, because we might as well make it as comfortable and as good a ride as possible. So what we're going to do is section a bit out of these factory foot mounts. It'll be a matter of measuring it up when we get to it, but we'll take between like 30 and 40 millimeters out of here, which we can do by cutting that out and re-welding it. And then these linkages, the sort of foot lever and the brake master should remain for the most part unchanged. And then we'll be able to sort of cut and shut that, weld it back up, brace it in the back, and finish it back so it will still look like a factory finish. It'll be basically the OEM Footpeg mount minus 30 or 40 mil, which will put your feet a little bit further towards the front of the bike. And also, you know, if we end up going sort of an off-road route with this thing, it will allow you to stand on the bike a lot easier, being more to the center of the bike, and create a heap more room for your legs. So it'll allow a taller person to ride it, and it'll give a shorter person a little bit more of a comfortable riding position. So I'm just trimming up this brake light section here. What I'm going to do is fold up a bit of sheet metal that will sort of contour to this tail, and then I haven't sort of settled on a light design yet, but probably use some like backlit, like an LED board, and then probably make like maybe some like acrylic detail that sort of protrudes past out the sheet metal, just something a bit weird and different. that's sort of like something that I'll decide far later. For now, I'm just gonna probably fold up the sheet metal box and stick it in there. So just put that nice radius bend in there, and it's just by chance, I guess. I won't take credit for that. Met up perfectly with where I need it to be. So I'll put the mounting screws in the back, mark my line, and then I'll probably fold the rest on my finger brake. So just finished folding up the sheet metal and this tail light. Now that it's all sort of fitted in, fits really nicely, it looks pretty good. I'll let it sit and maybe make a couple of sketches of how I'm going to design like the LED inserts and all that sort of stuff. But that'll sort of happen as we progress with the build. Right now I'm going to move on to building the tail tidy. So they've got a couple of mounts off the frame underneath here that I'm going to build a stainless steel rack off. I sort of normally would do something like this just out of sheet metal, but because we're not going too crazy on this bike, it'll allow us to like make the small things that we do really nice. So I'm going to sort of template up a couple of stainless round bar with some alley filler rod, make a bit of a design mock-up, and then I'll start to cut the stainless and weld it all together, and then you'll just have a plate that sticks out underneath the tail here with a little number plate light and all the rest of it. That'll wrap it up on our first episode, the Husqvarna Vitpilen 401 project. We've gone from a complete makeover on the front end, getting all that sorted out and tidied up. Dylan's still currently fabricating the Footpeg modifications that we're doing to shove those things forward. And then I'm just going to keep on working. I've got a little bit more fabrication to do on the tail tidy, then we'll figure out the brake light as it comes. In our next episode, we're going to start running through the exhaust build, take you through end to end on how to actually build a muffler from scratch. And then we'll sort of tidy this up, start to get the foot pegs and stuff mounted. And then as that sort of comes together, we can start thinking about our colour scheme and also seat design as well. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another episode. And we'll see you when we come back with episode 2.